faces as you all find me incredibly funny. It's really funny for me.
All right, our final presenter tonight is our good friend Amy Whalen, who I always say is the funniest true crime presenter anywhere. And it's true. Amy is a family history researcher who runs the blog How Your Ancestors Died. Such a cheery little blog. This year you can also find her on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube, telling family history stories and connecting the lives of regular people to the big events happening around them. If you want Amy to help you with your family history research, you can reach her at her blog. Amy will be talking tonight about the Cincinnati in the 1880s was the home of the Deer Creek Valley Gang. The men specialized in terrorizing their neighbors by committing every crime in the book, from disorderly conduct to highway robbery to murder and back again. In the summer of 1887, the gang was almost single-handedly taken down by a single revolver. I don't know anything about this. That's really cool. This is the story of that revolver and the impact that it had on the Deer Creek Valley Gang. And with that, let's welcome Amy Whalen.
Thank you. I actually just came up here for Lowell Observatory tickets, so I'll get them later. All right, so choosing a topic for stand-up history can be a little bit tricky. The goal is it has to be exciting, it has to have twists and turns, and there has to be good side characters helping out the story. And if you talk a lot about murders and people dying, you have to offset the sadness with it being funny, right? You've got to, or you lose the room, right? And it becomes a whole calculation. And you have to decide if your murder is funny enough to not be sad. And I had a whole plan. People who have been here before know I love to research the riots that happened in Cincinnati in 1884. I thought I haven't told a riot story in a while. And I found one, and it was a family where two brothers were both shot during the riot. And I thought I can make that hilarious. And so I'm researching this family, and they crossed my mind because I found an article from after the riots where it said almost the entire family line died out after these two brothers were shot in like various incidents over the course of the next couple of years. And I really thought something interesting is probably tied into that, and the more I researched it, the more I realized it was just the sad tale of a family that all died out within like 5 years of each other. And so I had to pivot. And I'm researching, and I'm sure folks that do history research like this have experienced something like this, where the history gods will just give you a gift. And I got a gift when I was doing this research, and it was this headline. And I want to tell you what I thought. I want to tell you what this headline reads for me, okay? Cocknuttle shot. Hilarious name. Amazing first off. Midnight mystery on Gilbert Avenue. The leader of the Deer Creek Gang done for. Side characters. There's going to be other dudes involved in this. The notorious thug fatally wounded by one of his friends. Drama, friend group, Real Housewives. Skinny Whalen and James Kennedy suspected of the crime. Is he related to me? Did my ancestor kill this man? I thought maybe no, because no one's ever accused anyone in my family of being skinny. And it turned out no. And then the hero of 100 holdups penetrated by a pistol ball. Not a good enough reason to use the word penetrated. And so I was like, this is a winner. We've got to just keep going with this. And so here's some history of the Deer Creek Valley Gang. And this is also the section, and Dean kind of did this as well, where I'm going to fangirl on Greg a little bit, because Greg has written about the Deer Creek Valley Gang as well, and so he's one of my sources for this. But according to renowned Cincinnati roughly. Over on the east side, if you know where Hard Rock Casino is, now it's roughly that area. There was a tunnel that ran in that space, and it was built for a railroad that never ended up running through it. And so it was a sizable tunnel, and it ran from Elsinore Place over to Eden Park. And the gang used this tunnel as a means of escape from the police and as a way to store stuff. And Greg actually gave me this great sketch that Caroline Williams did of what the entrance to the tunnel looked like. It was a well-known thing that the gang would operate in and around this tunnel. The police would not follow them into it. There was a lot of nooks and crannies inside where they knew where to hide, and it would basically be an ambush if the police followed them into there. And there was an excellent Greg Handism in the story about this that I had to share, and it was capacious enough, and he's describing the tunnel, it was capacious enough to store, Greg, do you remember what you said? Oodles of poodle. Yes. So, the gang actually went by multiple names. It was kind of a loosely affiliated group of people. And one of the names that they went by is the Nuttall Gang. And it's because so many of the members were members of the Nuttall family. And so you had 4 brothers. The first 2 were really the leaders of the gang, and that's James and William. And then Patrick and Thomas were less involved. But then cousins, Dan and also William, were more involved. And so you have a lot of Nuttals running around this tunnel. Poodles and Nuttals. And so we, as I was researching this story, I kept a list of side notes of things I found in the newspaper related to this gang that didn't fit into this talk. And I just wanted to, here's a picture also from Greg's article showing them stealing beer, which was one of their big things. The beer wagons would go by their tunnel, and there was like a tax where you had to give them a barrel of your beer in order to be able to pass. So that's what that is. Here's the list of sort of side facts that I found that I made a list to go research more deeply later. And that's like not even all of it, right? So just to show you like the breadth of the way this gang worked, they were all over the place. They were all over the newspaper. And so that takes us to the actual story I found. You're not supposed to read it, you're supposed to listen to me. That's why it's small. So it's July 23rd of 1887. Go back to that, and then you can't read it. There you go. July 23rd of 1887. The gang is hanging out at Maloney's, which is a saloon, and they are drunk. They're drunk, they're boisterous, they've been fighting with each other all night. 3 shots ring out, and everybody scrambles. The person left there is James Nuttall. He has been shot in the stomach. He stumbles down to the gutter where he falls, and for several minutes, no one helps him. And the thought is that everyone's so scared that someone sort of this powerful has been shot like this, no one wanted to approach him. And as police arrive and people start kind of coming back into the area, they lift him up and he says, I want you to take me home, take me to my house, I'll be fine. And police say, no, you have to go to the hospital, you've been shot. And so he goes to the hospital, but he was enraged by this because he wanted to go home. They gave him 2 shots of morphine at the hospital, and those had no impact on him. And he was just in pain and raging at the time. And he was described, and this is where the newspapers seem to always want you to think that the primary person in any given story was a sexy specimen of a man. And so I'm going to tell you how the newspaper described this man who was shot and in the hospital. A magnificent specimen of physical manhood. As he lay upon the couch, his great breast bare and his wonderful proportions exposed, he presented a striking picture. And I think mostly this is what I picture. And this actually kind of works because in the 1880 census, he could not read. So it fits. So And so it was quickly kind of honed in that he was their probable suspect. The other person they thought it might be, Skinny Whalen, he had an alibi, which is that he was in jail when it happened, which is a great alibi. Yes. And so he's ruled out, and so they're looking for Kennedy, and Kennedy is in hiding. And there was sort of conflicting reports throughout this time, because the Cincinnati Post was reporting that Kennedy was seen in all of his usual haunts and no one was bothering to arrest him. And then the Enquirer was reporting that he was a ghost of a man who had disappeared and was impossible to find. And then the police, when they were asked about it, said, hey, can you clarify what's going on? They said, we don't have a lot of funding right now. We don't know where he is. And so this shooting happens on July 23rd. Nuttall dies on July the 26th, so he lives in the hospital for a couple of days, he passes away. And it's not until August 1st that sort of the coroner forces the investigation forward. The coroner comes out and says, I'm going to go find Kennedy, I know him. The police aren't doing anything and it's ridiculous. And so he goes out and has a conference with Kennedy's uncle and basically negotiates his surrender and says, Kennedy's going to come forward and he's going to claim self-defense. He's going to say Nuttall attacked him, he had no choice but to shoot him. And Kennedy said, I'll turn myself in, but only to the coroner and only if I'm taken directly to jail. He said, I don't want to go to the police, I don't want to go to the police station, I think the police are trying to kill me. Which is very dramatic considering that I don't think the police were even trying to arrest him at that time. But so on August 8th, he goes to turn himself in, and he meets with the coroner on the street, and the police are so nonchalant about kind of this whole event, and the coroner seems to be sort of stepping outside of his lane, and they're walking towards the jail, and they run into a police officer, and the police officer says, hey, there's a warrant out for your arrest, and the coroner says, don't worry, it's my prisoner, I've got him, we're going to the jail. And the policeman's like, okay, great, like, thanks, go on. Kennedy says, I will go to the jail, I definitely will. I would like to stop for a beer first because I don't know how long they're gonna force me to stay in jail. And the coroner says, that makes a lot of sense. So they stop and they have a beer. And they give him a bottle of whiskey, which he takes to the jail with him. They say he's sober when he's checked in, and when the newspapermen went to get a statement from him roughly an hour later, most of the bottle of whiskey was gone, and he was drunk as a skunk. So, that's the first instance of the revolver, right? At this point, it's only taken out two of them, the one who's died and the one that's in jail for it. Let's jump back 2 days. We're going back in time to August 6th. Another fatal shooting occurred amongst gang members. And here's the thing. The man who was shot was called Grim Dick Smith. And I know you think I made that up. I did not make that up. I have no idea why these were these people's nicknames. They all had nicknames. They were all hilarious. So Grim Dick was shot by a man named William Mira. And William was actually still at the scene when police arrived. And there was some conflicting reports of whether or not he tried to get away and was unsuccessful, or if he just stayed there. It was his defense that it was an accidental shooting. And so it was sort of one of those, maybe he did stay there and try to clear his own name by just trying to explain what happened. But so what his story was of what happened that night is that he was very good friends with Grim Dick. He went out day drinking with him, and the revolver actually belonged to him. We're gonna call him GD. The revolver, because I can't keep looking at you. Let's say GD. It was his revolver, and it had been pawned. And he had spent time in jail, and when he got out, he went and got it back from pawn. He had let Kennedy borrow it, and then he had gotten it back. I don't know exactly how, because it seems like the police should have had it as evidence, but he got it back. It's the same revolver. Bill Mira is out with him, and he's worried about an accidental discharge of the gun because I still just started. That's the only weird dick joke I put in this whole thing, you guys. You gotta. Okay. So he tries to take the gun away, and he says, "Give the barkeeper the gun for safekeeping. Come back and get it tomorrow when you're sober. You're gonna shoot somebody." And GD says no. He's like, "This is my gun. If someone attacks me later, I need to have it with me. I'm gonna keep this gun." So Bill Mira gets a friend and says, "Hey, grab his arms and I'll grab the gun and we'll go put it away and then it won't be here anymore and it won't be a threat." So one friend grabs his arms, Bill grabs the gun, and according to Bill, they grapple over the gun and it goes off, and GD says, "I've been shot." And Bill says, "No, you haven't," and walks away with the gun and gives it to the bartender and says, "Put this in like your safe or whatever for the night." He comes back out and is like, "Oh man, you really got shot." And the police come, he goes to the hospital, and he dies of that injury. He was actually shot through the stomach, which probably didn't feel good. And so, revolver again. So what happens with this is now 2 inquests by the coroner happening simultaneously. So like investigations into what happened. And so the first one is the Nuttall Kennedy shooting, where Kennedy claims it was in self-defense. Nuttall had a knife, he attacked him, and he says he had no choice. What he did was, he actually said, "Get away from me, get back away from me." Nuttall didn't stop, and he felt he had to shoot him. Now, this is also a very, I feel like it's good that it's St. Patrick's Day week. This is a very Irish story. The more I get into the names, the more I'm like, this is all a bunch of drunk Irish people. So Mary Flannery was there with her friend Mary Slattery. And they were with Nuttall that night. And they spoke in his defense and basically said Kennedy was the aggressor. Nuttall didn't do anything to him, didn't make any sort of threat. Kennedy never gave him a warning to back away. And the coroner took a lot of stock in this statement, and the coroner's decision was that this was most likely murder in the first degree, and that is how the charges were filed against Kennedy. Now, on the second inquest, Bill Mira claimed that that shooting was accidental. He's right, "It was my friend, I was trying to take his gun away, and..." What? "It was my friend, I was trying to take his gun away, and it accidentally went off." The issue with that story, which sounds very plausible, right? Like, you hear it and you think, yeah, that could have been what happened. The witnesses that were there at the time, I'm watching your faces as you all find the inquiry. It's really funny for me, just so in case you're curious. Okay, so the other witnesses that were there said that Bill did take the gun. He very deliberately aimed it and fired, and then went to shoot the man again, and someone actually tackled him away and stopped him, and it was a very deliberate shooting that would have constituted a murder. Now, the coroner didn't feel like there was enough to warrant a charge of murder, and so he recommended a charge of manslaughter for this offense. And so now we have 4 gang members, all considered leaders in the group, taken out by this one revolver within a week of each other. And as these inquests are happening, members of the gang are attending the inquest. Now, members of this gang didn't hang out in public, in daylight, all that often, especially if they were charged with a crime. And the police realized they were going to go to these inquests in order to support their friends that were charged. And so they went with the paddy wagon and arrested as many of them as they could. And so they arrested these 5 men: Tim Boots Mahoney, John Dickety Quinn, Tim Norman, Robert Dennis, and Pat Murphy, who's noted in the newspaper as not being as notorious as the others. So I assume he got out of jail and immediately picked a fight with someone just to try to prove he could. After that, the gang gets a little bit quieter, and in March of 1894, there's an article in the paper about how members of the group have largely died out. And if you look at the list that they have as a part of that article, some of it's illness, some of it's violence. This actual article is about William Nuttall, who is James's older brother, who was the other kind of, the Nuttall gang came from their name. And this is him dying of pneumonia. And so J. Dice Kennedy, who was the perpetrator of the first murder, was actually shot dead and killed on the steps of the same saloon where he killed Cock Nuttall roughly 10 years before. And so the cycle of violence there kind of continues, but that is the story of how one revolver mostly took out the Nuttall gang by itself. Thank you.